Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today because we have some very exciting General Hospital news to talk about, and it's definitely worth the wait. What makes this situation so disturbing is that Willow does not seem like a woman collapsing under fear or guilt. She seems like a woman who has already thought several steps ahead. The way she revealed that she shot Drew did not feel messy, confused, or accidental. It felt calm, deliberate, and deeply controlled. That is what makes Nina's position so tragic. Nina was not standing in front of a daughter who had suddenly broken down and confessed in a moment of emotional weakness. She was standing in front of someone who may already have decided how this story would unfold, who would be pulled into it, and who would be left carrying the ugliest consequences when the truth finally came out. The most chilling part is not only that Willow admitted what she had done, but that she appears to have prepared Nina's involvement long before the confession. She asked Nina to handle the syringe and give the injection, and Nina did so without understanding the full horror of what was really happening. That detail changes everything. This was not simply a mother trying to comfort or protect her troubled daughter. This became a trap built through love, trust, and urgency. Nina believed she was helping. She believed she was acting out of concern. But in reality, her fingerprints were placed directly onto the object connected to the crime, and that means Willow did not just share a secret with Nina. She may have quietly tied Nina to the crime itself. That is why Willow's behavior feels less like panic and more like strategy. A frightened person makes mistakes, leaves loose ends, and acts with visible desperation. Willow, in this version of events, did the opposite. She stayed composed enough to let Nina physically take part in what happened. She allowed the situation to become legally dangerous for her mother before revealing the truth. That timing matters. By the time Nina understood the full meaning of what she had done, it was already too late to stay clean. She had crossed the line from worried mother to possible accomplice, not because she shared Willow's intentions, but because Willow used her love as a weapon. And that is where the emotional cruelty of this story becomes almost unbearable. Nina did not begin this situation as a criminal or a willing partner in violence. She began as a mother, trying to save her daughter from pain, chaos, and self-destruction. Her instinct was emotional, protective, and deeply human. But Willow may have seen that instinct as something useful. She may have understood that Nina would always move toward her, always try to help, always put herself at risk if she believed her daughter needed her. Instead of respecting that love, Willow may have turned it into a shield for herself. Worse than that, she may have turned it into a future weapon, something she could use when the pressure becomes too great and she needs someone else to blame. If that is truly Willow's plan, then Nina is no longer just part of a family tragedy. She has become part of a carefully arranged power game. She cannot simply comfort Willow, forgive Willow, or wait for Willow to calm down. She now has to think like someone trapped inside a dangerous structure that was built around her without her consent. Every move she makes matters. Every silence matters. Every choice could either protect her or destroy her. Because if Willow is truly preparing for the day the truth comes out, then Nina is standing in the perfect place to become the one who falls first. What makes Willow even more frightening in this situation is the possibility that she is protecting herself against future exposure. If Jack ever releases footage, or if other evidence begins to surface, Willow may already have her answer prepared. She may be able to present herself not as the mastermind, but as a broken woman surrounded by other people making terrible choices. In that version of events, Nina becomes extremely vulnerable. Willow could suggest that Nina acted on her own, or that Nina pushed events further than they were meant to go, or that Nina became unstable and dangerous. Once Nina's fingerprints are on the syringe and her involvement is established, the truth becomes harder to separate from manipulation. That is exactly why this feels like a trap rather than a confession. The balance of power between mother and daughter has now changed in a painful way. Nina once believed that loving Willow meant staying close, staying patient, and continuing to fight for her even when their relationship became difficult. But now that same love has placed Nina in danger. She is no longer only emotionally tied to Willow. She is strategically tied to her. That makes the relationship darker than ever before. It is not just wounded, it is poisoned by suspicion. Nina has to wonder whether every tear, every plea, and every moment of vulnerability from Willow was real, or whether some part of it was designed to keep her close enough to be useful. There is also a terrible irony in the idea that Nina wanted to save her daughter, only to risk becoming the true victim of Willow's scheme. Nina entered this situation innocent, driven by maternal fear and love. But if Willow is allowed to direct the story, Nina could end up looking like the monster. She could become the woman linked to the syringe, the woman tied to Drew's collapse, the woman who cannot prove that she was manipulated from the start. That would be one of the cruelest outcomes imaginable, because Nina's original sin was not malice, it was trust. It was believing that her daughter still had some moral line she would not cross. If Willow has crossed that line, then Nina's heartbreak becomes far greater than legal danger. It becomes the devastating realization that the child she wanted to protect may be the one destroying her. This is why Willow's actions feel so cold. She is not simply making desperate choices after being hurt by Drew's lies. She seems to be building layers of protection around herself while placing Nina in the path of the blowback. The shooting, the syringe, the confession, and the timing all suggest a person who is thinking beyond guilt and beyond remorse. She is thinking about survival. She is thinking about control. And she may be thinking about how to make sure that if she goes down, she does not go down alone. That is what makes her so dangerous. She is not only reacting to betrayal, she may now be creating a second betrayal of her own, one aimed directly at the mother who loved her enough to step into the fire for her. In that sense, Nina's tragedy is almost biblical in its sadness. She reached out to save her daughter and may have been pulled into ruin instead. She wanted to rescue Willow from consequences, but that rescue may have been exactly what Willow needed in order to shift those consequences onto someone else. And if that is true, then Willow has committed something even darker than violence against Drew. She has taken the purest thing Nina had left to offer, a mother's desperate love, and twisted it into evidence, leverage, and possibly even a murder frame. For Nina, the pain would not only come from fear of punishment, it would come from understanding that the daughter she tried to save may have already decided to sacrifice her. What makes this turn even more unsettling is how quiet the control feels. Willow does not appear to be forcing anything in an obvious way. There are no loud threats, no visible panic, no desperate attempts to cover her tracks. Instead, she seems to be arranging possibilities, placing each piece carefully so that no matter what happens next, she is never left without an escape. It is a kind of control that does not draw attention to itself, and that is precisely why it is so dangerous. For Nina, this means she is not facing a clear enemy. She is caught inside a situation that has already been shaped around her, one that limits her choices before she even realizes she needs to make them. If the video that Jack holds ever comes into play, the balance shifts instantly. Willow will not stand alone under suspicion. Nina's presence in that chain of events has already been secured. The syringe, the proximity, the access to Drew at a critical moment, these are not small details that can be easily dismissed. They form a pattern, and once that pattern is seen from the outside, the question naturally changes. It is no longer about a single act committed by one person. It becomes something shared, something blurred, something that pulls Nina into the same shadow whether she intended to be there or not. That shift in perception is where Willow gains her quiet advantage. But there is an even colder possibility that sits beneath the surface. Willow may not be trying to remove Nina from the story at all. She may be trying to keep her exactly where she is. By tying Nina to the events, Willow creates a bond that is difficult to break. Nina cannot expose Willow without exposing herself. Every move Nina considers now must be weighed against that risk. Every truth she might tell carries a cost. That is not a loud form of blackmail. It is something much more subtle. It is dependence built slowly and reinforced by fear. Once Nina understands that her own safety is tied to Willow's, her freedom to act begins to disappear. She becomes part of a shared fate, whether she accepts it or not. This is where the emotional conflict deepens into something almost unbearable. Nina is no longer simply trying to protect her daughter. She is now forced to protect herself from the consequences of loving her daughter. That shift changes the entire meaning of their relationship. Love becomes a trap. Loyalty becomes a risk. And every moment Nina hesitates, every moment she chooses silence instead of action, strengthens the structure Willow has built around her. It is a slow kind of entanglement, one that tightens not through force but through inevitability. There is also a more patient and more frightening version of Willow's plan that cannot be ignored. She may not need to decide right now who will ultimately take the fall. She only needs to make sure that when the time comes, she has options. If pressure builds from Jack or from any other direction, Nina can become the release point. If the truth begins to surface elsewhere, Nina can become the explanation, the person whose actions went too far, whose judgment failed, whose control slipped. In that version of events, Willow does not need to fight for her innocence. She only needs to step back slightly and allow the narrative to reshape itself around Nina.